The Bobby O Show.
Based upon that opening, I bet you can guess that this is another version of The Bobby O Show. Welcome. Have I got an exciting show for y'all? This is election season, and we're going to focus today on the election that's a contested election on the Richfield Board of Education. And this is a very special show to me because in order to balance this show off appropriately, I'm a member of the Democratic Party, and I have a good friend of mine named Marty Heiser, who will be on in a second, who is a Republican. And so we have done about 6 or 7 debates on Comcast. And I think we've always had fun doing them, but it's balanced as to who the questioners are. So I'll introduce Marty to you in a second. And we also have 3 of the 6 people who will be on the ballot for the Board of Education spots. I'll discuss that in a moment. What I want to do first, though, is to explain to you as clearly as I can what the protocol is for the Richfield Board of Ed election. Under the rules, and there's this charter. I was actually chairman of the Charter Revision Committee several years ago, but under the charter, we follow state statute and we deviate from it as allowed by statute. And since the Board of Education has 9 members on the board, only 6 of those members can be from the same political party affiliation. In which case you can have 6 that no matter how the voting goes, only ending up with 6 people on the Board of Ed from the same political party. The other 3 can be unaffiliated or members of the other party. The term of office for the Board of Education is 4 years. And there's a rotation where in 1 2-year period, you get 5 candidates running. And the next one, you get 4. So it's sort of like the Senate, where you have different people running. On this session of the Board of Education, there are 9 members. 4 of them are going to be incumbents, so they don't have to run now. And they all happen to be members of the Democratic Party. So the other 5 people running for this election, no more than 2 of them can be members of the Democratic Party. The other 3 have to be either unaffiliated or another party, but they can't be Democrats. So I want to explain that to you because it's a little bit confusing. I'll also tell you the Board of Education is, in my opinion, a very hard spot to be in, but I love my 15 years that I spent on it. And if you're devoted to education and the community, the job will be hard, but it's really gratifying. The next thing I want to tell you is that I do have 3 people here today, but I want to let you know that all of the candidates who are going to be on the ballot were invited. It so happens that all of the Republican candidates opted not to be on the show. And just to be fair, because I want to make sure everyone knows that I'm trying to be fair in the whole process, I spoke with and wrote to the town chairman of the Republican Town Committee, Mark Paradiso, and in one call was initiated by Marty and me. And we had picked this particular date, which is today now 10 o'clock on September 29th, with the permission of my Comcast director, Candy. Marty and I could make this slot, and we're doing a second show after this first show. We spoke with the Republican town chair. He had two criteria for their appearing on the show. One was they wanted security, and Marty said, you don't need security in any event, but this is a remote show, so there can't be security. The other thing is he wanted to have some political discussion by me about a concern they had about how one person got in the ballot. I indicated I don't do conditions, but if they want to raise any questions that could come up, that could be done. We then went back and forth, and Mike said, the town chair Republican Party, said that none of the people could make this time slot. So essentially, without reading the quotes, and I have the emails back and forth, I said, well, then pick out a time slot that works for you all. His response was, it's not going to work. So I did my best to get the Republican candidates to be on this show. They're not here. That's my background. Now I introduce to you my friend and my co-host today, Marty Heiser. Marty Heiser, welcome aboard, my friend.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Should be an interesting show.
It will always be an interesting show. So let's get right to the candidates so we can introduce who they will be. And the candidates are, I'm going to go in alphabetical order, Dawn Marie Callahan, Wyatt Lipman, and Jonathan Paradiso. Welcome aboard, folks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
Great. Marty and I agreed to some ground rules, but this will be very flexible. And again, we're not going to do the same show twice. So the next half-hour show is going to be different questions and not all the opening we just did. Number one is we're going to give each candidate, and it's going to be done by alphabetical order. Dawn Marie will be first, a 3-minute opening. And you'll have a chance to say whatever you think is appropriate in any way, shape, or form. That'll happen. Then what will happen is that Marty, as my guest host, with a guest co-host, is going to then ask the next question, and whoever he asks, and we'll go in the same order of people, but then we'll rotate the questions thereafter. And the person being asked the question gets 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes to respond. I'm going to ask the next candidates to keep an eye on the clock a little bit, but I'll watch the clock. But we don't want to be as focused on the clock as we do on getting substantive responses. Then after Dawn Marie answers her question, Wyatt and John will have a chance to do a 1-minute response to that question, whatever they want to say about it. And then Marty, as question at the end of that session, can ask a 30-second or whatever question at all related to the responses. We'll take turns that way. And then at the end of the show, we're going to do a 2-minute closing argument. And I think, as a matter of fact, what I may do to change, if no one objects to it, is maybe just have the closing argument on the second show. We'll see how it goes and how far we get, because time will go fast. Having said all that, Marty Heiser, my friend, you get the first question to Dawn Marie.
Well, just really quick, I'd just like to say I've had 3 kids that have gone through the Ridgefield school system from kindergarten to graduating from Ridgefield High School. So I appreciate the Board of Ed throughout those years. I appreciate what you guys do. Obviously, the real estate values in this town are so tied to the school system, and it's really imperative that we have a well-functioning Board of Ed, and I appreciate you guys taking the time. I've read all about you guys, and you're very accomplished in your own lives and taking the time to volunteer to be on the Board of Ed. Last time I checked, they don't pay you. Is that right?
It is absolutely a volunteer position.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for stepping up. We appreciate that. I have a mixed bag here. One of the things I wanted to do is get a man on the street question. So I just walked out and I have a couple. This is a lady at the park at Ballard Green, and this was her questions for the candidate. Again, we're here at Ballard Park, and it looks like the Ridgefield Public School System will be in business for years to come. But you had a question for the candidates for the Board of Ed?
Yes, I did. I would be curious, is it the school's right to educate the students, or is it the parents' right and the citizens' right to have their children be educated? I guess what's the paradigm that the school system is looking at? Is it the government's right to educate their children, or is it the parents' right to have their children be educated?
Excellent. No, I appreciate that very much.
Marty,
so that's a question. She has a question about parents' rights.
Marty, I made a mistake. I made a mistake already. I got a note from all the candidates. What I forgot to do is do the opening statement. So I think what we'll do is, if you guys don't mind, let's have Dawn Marie do her opening statement. We'll use that lady's question, which I think is a very nice question. In fact, it's a question I had on one of my lists. So therefore, I apologize to the candidates. So guys, see, we're a little mistaken a little bit. So Dawn Marie, do your opening statement. Then we'll go to the other two, and then we'll go back to that lady's question. Okay, Marty?
Absolutely.
Sorry, gang.
No worries. It's early in the morning. Make sure you have your coffee, Bobby.
I don't drink coffee. Go ahead.
So yes, my name is Dawn Marie Callahan. I'm running as an unaffiliated for the Board of Ed this year. I believe that question that the Republicans were asking about somebody, how they got onto the ballot, I am going to take that right now and get that out of the way. I am running as unaffiliated because I believe that politics should not be part of the discussion when we're talking about our children and our children's education. I think that needs to stay fair and square, solely focused on them. What do they need in order to move forward? And it's not about an agenda from either side. I will let you know that I have been registered as a Democrat since high school back in Arizona, when we filled out a questionnaire, and I got, if there were however many questions, I had Republican, Democrat, and one more Democrat on there that I answered to push me to register that way. So I registered that way. I've never changed it, but I've always voted on the issues. So I did try to see if I could get on to be one of the candidates from the DTC put up by the Democrats, but I wasn't Democrat enough. And they've got two wonderful candidates here, John and Wyatt. So I decided, you know what, you don't need to be there. We have 36% of our town that's registered as unaffiliated, 36% just like me who vote on the issues. And my husband also unaffiliated we've been together 28 years. So this is not a new path for me. This is just a decision to finally do something about that status. So I am running as unaffiliated. I am a longtime advocate. Started off with little girl rescuing animals, moved on to becoming a vegetarian for animal compassion reasons back in college. So that's been about 27 years now, showing my age. And then it moved on to fostering and rescuing and doing a bunch of stuff like that. I've also been involved with trying to get the Bureau of Land Management to do something about all of our wild Mustangs, to stop taking them off of the range, to free up farming land. That's something that I actually am passionate about. And I've tried working with that as well. But as I've become a mother, naturally, I think my advocacy has changed from animals, or evolved, grown, to include children as well. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, both boys, both crazy, active, loud. They are in 5th and 2nd grade over at Farmingville. And I got involved from preschool to see, into the classrooms, into the helping out the teachers, helping out the instructors, trying to see where can I lend a hand? How can I learn more about how their education works? And then I got onto the PTA as an advocacy position on the executive board, where I sit in on the BOE meetings and I take the information that happens at those 3-hour meetings and I relay it back to our school, to Farmingville Elementary, and how things pertain there. And I'm trying to get more parents interested and involved in kind of seeing what's going on and maybe voicing their opinions and their concerns. And then now this is just a natural progression for me. I want to make sure that our children are all represented and that our children are safe, are physically, academically, and emotionally, everything, like, supported and getting the best education they can in our district. So here I am. Hi.
Thanks, Dawn Marie. Next would be Wyatt.
Well, thank you, Bob and Marty, for inviting us to do this. I'm absolutely thrilled to take the time to talk with you about education in Ridgefield. And let me start by saying how I look at this campaign. I know that this conversation has been talked about as a debate, but I'm not running against these candidates, and I'm not running against any candidate in this race. I'm running for the students, the teachers, and the families in Ridgefield. And I'd like to take a little time to share why I'm running, a little about who I am, and what I will do on the board. So I'm running because I have a 2-year-old daughter named Vivian. And for my wife, Maria, and for me, the journey to parenthood was a very difficult one. So we are grateful every single day to be parents to Vivian, to watch her explore the world. We're incredibly excited that she'll have a little brother joining us in December. So during my first term on the board, she will be a kindergartner at Branchville Elementary School. She will be in the class of 2040 at Ridgefield High School. And that is my motivation. It is for to ensure that our excellent schools here in Ridgefield, which brought us to this town, remain strong for the class of 2024 and for the class of 2040 and beyond, and for all of the classes in between. As I mentioned, my wife Maria and I came to town 3 years ago, in large part because of the strong schools. My parents actually followed us here. So we now have 3 generations living here in Ridgefield, invested in the community, and we are all in on the future of Ridgefield Public Schools. A little bit more about who I am. My dad was a public school teacher. He taught music in Massachusetts. and went on to be an administrator and a college faculty member for 40 years. So I've got education in my blood, and I've got service in my bones. I'm a lawyer with historically an active record of education advocacy, most recently for a group called Bottom Line, mentoring high school students that are aspiring to be first-generation college students. I worked for the Queens District Attorney and the Domestic Violence Bureau. So I became a lawyer to be a voice for the voiceless. I've spent the last 20 years as a business executive at companies facing the toughest problems in the world. And from where I sit, I have to be a problem solver. I have to bring people together to find solutions. And so it's not good enough for me to raise what all the challenges are, what all the difficulties might be along the way. We have to figure out how to get to yes. And so I'm running for the Board of Education to focus on how we can bring people together, how we can offer collaborative leadership with the excellent superintendent we have. And let me tell you just a little bit about what I would like to do. We can talk more about it as we have time today, but one issue that's critical is teachers, 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 teachers. We have a teacher shortage facing all of our communities, and we need to be problem solvers to figure out how to recruit, retain, and develop the careers of teachers. They are the keystone to the educational success of our students. I'm sure we all remember a teacher that touched our lives. I remember Mrs. Clifford in 5th grade who pulled me aside and encouraged me to continue my creative writing. And so teachers are going to be at the heart of what we're going to talk about in this campaign.
Thank you, Wyatt. John, do you prefer John or Jonathan, by the way? You're on mute. You're on mute. John, can you hear us, John?
Yeah, I got you. Sorry about that, Bobby.
That
my friends call me John. Please feel free to call me John.
John, you get your 3 minutes.
On the ballot on November 7th, you'll see Jonathan.
Okay.
But for here, please call me John.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Well, first of all, Bobby and Marty, thank you so much for taking your time and facilitating this conversation. I think these sorts of opportunities are vital, really, for the community and for all the voters to just meet us and not just read about us or maybe see a mailer or a sign. I think it's vital, frankly, that we get a chance to connect with folks through this medium. So thank you very, very much. My name is John Paradiso. I moved here a couple of years ago. I'm a Bronx resident, Bronx native. I grew up on City Island, and when my family and I moved here, my goal was to find a community that would allow us and my children to achieve their highest potential. We were so happy when we found Ridgefield because it's such a special and unique place. And I'm really happy to be here. My educational background, I graduated from Fordham with a bachelor's and an MBA in finance with an emphasis on information systems. I'm an auditor and an accountant by trade. I started my career at Ernst & Young, and then I pivoted to be a corporate accountant and eventually a head of finance at high growth businesses, technology startups like Indeed, and other companies in Manhattan and in Fairfield County. I became an advocate in the community I grew up in after my child was born in 2016. I co-founded a neighborhood organization, an advocacy organization with some friends that really focused on climate resiliency and economic development in our community. And I also was on the finance and audit committee of a nonprofit board in Manhattan, New Yorkers for Parks. That was also an environmental advocacy organization. Why am I running? Ultimately, I'm running to ensure that our district remains committed to the highest level of excellence and compassion for all learners. I believe that my professional background in finance makes me well-suited to partner with the administration to provide prudent fiscal stewardship for the district. While my personal experience advocating for the needs of my two young children have taught me the empathy and tenacity required to represent families at various stages of their educational journey, I'm really incredibly honored at this opportunity. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to serve more than anything else.
Great. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Now, Marty, here's what we're going to do. In order to get a question by each of you, with us, you and me, in this half hour, I'm going to limit the answer from each person to 1 minute per response per question. Otherwise, we won't be able to get two questions in. So, Marty, you want to paraphrase that question from the
Yeah,
lady?
sure. So just to go back to where we were, this is a young lady that we met, a young mother at the park there. And her question literally just right off the top of her head was, what about parental rights? What's the paradigm? And I think this is an issue facing across the country. It's a very hot button issue. Some people say it was determinative in the Virginia gubernatorial race where Governor Youngkin won. It was parents' rights. Parents are upset at schools that feel like they have the right to raise their children and address some of these issues. So that is the question that this young mother had, and I'd like to hear your response.
Dawn Marie, you get 1 minute, and then I'll take it from there.
You're swinging for the fences right off the bat, aren't you? All right. I definitely believe that it is a parent's right to have some involvement in their child's education. We want to know what's happening with our children. These are our most valuable treasures, and we want to make sure that we're doing right by them at all points. So I think the community involvement, parent involvement is important. But I think that we are supposed to educate our children. I mean, like this is a requirement. Our children need to be educated, and it's important for our society that we put forth certain basics that they should know, or that we should try to teach them before we send them off into the world to become leaders and make decisions and laws on their own. So for the Board of Ed, though, I mean, we're the conduit to the community. So we're going to look at stuff. We're going to look at policy. We're going to set policy. We're going to try to get involvement. We're going to try to make sure that, I guess, the parents are happy with what the state is forcing us, or the federal is forcing us to, or asking us to make happen for our kids in our education system.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the gentlemen to each give 30-second response. I have a similar question following up anyway. So let's get 30 seconds from Wyatt first.
So it's a critical role of the Board of Education, as Dawn Marie has said, to be a conduit to the community, and parents' voices are absolutely critical. So we need to be listening to parents, and we need to bring those voices to the board table and make sure that our professional educators who are setting priorities understand what our community values are and what our parents want, what their aspirations are for the education of their children. Education is one of those things that we have to do together. It's like security and infrastructure and transportation. We have an obligation to provide every child with a free and appropriate public education. And we have to do that together and come together.
Thank you. Jonathan, 30 seconds.
Thanks. Wyatt hit on the concept of obligation. And I think that's an important one that we need to focus on when we have a conversation about parents' rights. I think it's the obligation of our district to provide our students with the kind of education that allows them to become the citizens we want this community to have. And at the end of the day, it's really through collaboration between the community and the board and our really talented administration that we're going to find the right solution. I don't think there's a right solution necessarily that we can look to in another state and say, hey, this is right for Connecticut. I think we're going to find the right solutions here in Ridgefield for Ridgefield in that partnership.
Thank you. My question that I had prepared is very similar to that, but I want to just start it with this. I spent 15 years in the Board of Education, and it's your job as Board of Education members to listen to the constituents, but it's not your job to have anyone dictate to you. And I want to read to you the first sentence of the Board of Education policy, which says, quote, according to the Board of Education bylaws, the board is charged with assuring that its operations support the district in providing all students with a high quality education, unquote. My question goes to Wyatt first. I want to say to you, when you're on the Board of Education, you're going to be getting meetings where some group of parents, it might be 10. We used to say 10 parents is a mob. And by that, it means that's a big turnout. And when these people come in person, you're going to be faced with people who are friends, calling you, coming to meetings, who are going to be saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. And you are a fiduciary in your position. My question is, tell me some examples of your acting in a position in your life and your work experience where you've had to deal with making decisions that you thought were best for the activity, but contrary to people who are pressuring you to decide what the right decision would be.
So, Bob, that's my entire role as a lawyer. I am sworn to be a fiduciary for my clients and for my business partners, and to offer objective advice that protects the broader interests of the organization. So, as a lawyer for Google now, I am deeply engaged in interpreting policy and doing governance, which are the twin responsibilities of the Board of Education. I'm glad you brought up the bylaws because the role and responsibility of the board is established by statute, and it's set out in the bylaws, and it's in Series 9000, and it all revolves around governance and policy. And so that's really my bread and butter as a practicing lawyer for decades, as somebody that's sat on other boards, as somebody that's been a part of the leadership council for Bottom Line, an education nonprofit. And you take incoming from all different stakeholders and you synthesize it, you analyze it, and you determine in your judgment what is in the best interest of the organization. In this case, what is in the best interest of the district, what is in the best interest of the students, families, teachers, and the mission of the district, which is to provide the best possible education for all students. So that's the lens through which I'm going to look to do this work. These issues, they don't have R's or D's in front of them. These are not political issues. These are issues about judgment and about governance.
Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but we're trying to get them in as well. We have 2 minutes left for this edition. 30 seconds each for Dawn Marie. Actually, next is Jonathan. I apologize, Jonathan. 30 seconds for you, Jonathan.
No problem. Wyatt and I have very similar professional backgrounds. I'm an accountant and head of finance. My job ultimately on a daily basis is weighing multiple constituencies, multiple necessities, and coming up with a solution, solving problems. Bobby, you mentioned, you've got 10 people, it's a mob, and we can agree to disagree. I want 10 people. I want to hear from people, and maybe I'm setting myself up for disaster here. I don't know, but I want to hear what people think, because ultimately the purpose of the board, and Wyatt mentioned this, is we're a conduit for the community. We really need to be able to understand what the community values and be able to execute that in partnership with the administration.
Yeah, and by the way, when I said mob, I didn't mean that in a mean way. I meant that in a way of that's a large percent of people they're advocating for. But we'll take what I once got kidnapped by some people who drove me. There was an issue about what school district their kids should go to and the length of the bus ride. And these 4 ladies kidnapped me in a nice way and drove me around the entire route for about 2 hours. And it was a pleasure. I got to tell you, this 30-minute part has gone by very, very quickly. We obviously have candidates who have a lot to say. I'm going to say that Marty and I will be back in a second part 2 of this show shortly if you're watching it live on Comcast Live, etc. But it'll also be tape delayed. So this has been Bobo Potzer with my co-host Marty Heiser in part 1 of the Bobby O Show concerning the Richfield Board of Education election of 2023. Thanks, guys.